Oh my god, there he is. Okay. No, he's not. I don't think he can come in here. Oh, okay. Oh my god. Oh my god. I recently just finished my first time through Amnesia the Bunker after putting it off for months for reasons I honestly can't explain. It's clear now that I was missing out because it's a great experience, but alas, my video is here and we're covering both the good and bad aspects of the game. I'm sure a spoiler warning isn't really needed this long after launch, but hey, I'm gonna put one in here anyway because if you want to experience the game for yourself, I encourage you to do so. Now, Amnesia the Bunker is a simplistically complex game that more than surpassed my expectations. Now, you may be saying right now,
what? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
To which I say,
you shut up!
Hold on, what I mean is, Frictional's latest game serves up a scenario and objective that is entirely simple. Escape the bunker, that's it. But the way in which Henry must achieve this goal and the mechanics that are built around this objective are complex. The lead protagonist kind of seems to follow this formula in parallel with the game's simple setup, because unlike Frictional's last two games, Soma and Rebirth, Henry has little to say outside of a few journal entries.
I'm in a state of agony. It cripples my body.
While he does have a direct role in the causation of his current predicament, his story and the story of the bunker are somewhat optional. This fits too with the open-ended nature of the gameplay formula, being as its World War I setting is semi-open world. Not open world, more open area. You can traverse these different areas at will as long as you have the tools to get into them. This seems to be in contrast with their previous work that mostly followed the formula of a linear horror experience that had a lot of deep narrative ties. Combine the premise of this game with the persistently roaming threat hunting you and you have a recipe for success. And the game manages to achieve this success by excelling in three areas: tension, sound design, and its immersive elements. The bunker is practically built around a constant sense of dread and tension, like all good horror games. But how does the game pull this off so well? Well, realistically, it's a combination of things, but the main contributing factor is what's called the Stalker. The game's grotesque creature that does exactly what its name implies. Alien Isolation is one of the few games to follow this formula and perfect it. And just like Alien Isolation's Xenomorph, the bunker's AI uses audio feedback to engage and work its way around the environments. Because this game's focus is so heavily on the audio side of things, the player constantly has to be wary of where they're walking, what they're moving, and if throwing that grenade at the door you really need to get into right now is worth it. There were times where I'd simply just knock over a bottle sitting on a table and sit in pure shock as it rolled, clanking on the uneven cement floor, just praying that the creature wouldn't emerge from the holes on the other side of the wall. I can't tell you how stressful that brief moment in time is because the game's AI is free to go about the environments and investigate on his own volition. Because of this, there's constant dread, even in the minute things. This is helped by the game consistently putting the player in situations where there is no other outcome than to produce sound in an effort to clear the path of progression. But there's options. There's ways to mitigate this by using certain tools like a gas grenade, which is used to get by certain obstacles undetected. But sound is inevitable and so is the creature's emergence. Luckily, the game affords the player time to figure out a plan because being strategic and planning will lead to way better outcomes. In fact, the game implores you to get creative because if something looks like it can be done, there's a high probability that it can. I mean, the game straight up tells you this, and some people's ingenuity online with how they are tackling certain obstacles blows my mind and is out of the realm of anything I would have thought of in my entire life. The fact that this game affords you the ability to do this is awesome. There's a big emphasis placed on resource and inventory management. Key resources are constantly in short supply, creating a need for exploration to stockpile ammo and gas for the generator. The generator not only plays a huge role in this tension, but it's your best friend because the creature doesn't like light. Filling the generator with gas and turning it on provides you with an opening to venture out of the safe room with a reduced threat level for a brief time. But like everything, it's not going to last, and the gas will eventually run out, and if you aren't keeping track of how much time you have left, the lights are going to go off, and it's going to lead to a horrifying outcome. There are decisions to be made by the player that consistently have you on edge. Do you use that last can of gas to turn the lights on and try to hit as many rooms as possible to scavenge for resources, or do you venture out into the darkness hoping that luck is on your side and that the stealth approach works? Your success and how you achieve it is entirely in your hands, but you never know which move is the right one. All of these elements tie directly into this tension. As I mentioned before, the game heavily focuses on sound and audio cues to make its moving parts work. So naturally, audio design in any game is important. Some people don't think it is, but it really is, because good audio will provide a satisfying audio feedback, and it can also lead to setting a specific tone or mood. In this case, the mood is hopelessness with distant sounds of gunfire and the occasional mortar shelling hitting the bunker, and it makes the setting so believable. Let's put it this way. If the guns in Call of Duty didn't sound as good as they do, they wouldn't be as fun to fire, and the game then wouldn't be as good to play. If the voice in Mass Effect sucked, nobody would want to talk to the NPCs and learn about their interesting stories. Halo is known for its original soundtracks that focus on orchestras and choirs that bring forth a religious undertone. Without these aspects, those games wouldn't be as well known as they are today. That's my firm belief, fight me if you don't agree. The audioscape should form some kind of cohesion because it adds to the immersion and enjoyment of an experience. The Amnesia games have always been a heavy hitter in this area, and of course it's no exception here. The echo of your footsteps as you journey through narrow hallways, or the audible clink when you pull the pin out of a grenade and then hear the eardrum blaring sound as the aftermath leaves your ears ringing, does a fantastic job of allowing you to hear not only how good the audio quality is, but how loud you're being.
Hello there.
Obviously, a grenade is gonna attract a lot of attention, but the wind-up flashlight produces a slight wiring sound that makes you feel somewhat safe using it, at least for a little bit. Not only is the overall construction of this audio great, it also serves a fundamental purpose by relaying important information to the player because light is not always an option. Listening can save your life and can determine the monster's whereabouts, whether he's patrolling or even just lurking in the walls. Based on this information, the player is able to make judgment calls on where to go or what to do next. It may seem like something so small, but it's so integral to the player's success and the overall cohesion of this game. The monster even has audible cues that allow the player to know whether he has emerged or not, and this is something that the player has to get accustomed to. His footsteps can be used to gauge how far or how close he is and what direction he's coming from. Honestly, I love how the sound is utilized in this game because it's also in constant conflict with itself. It's both your worst enemy when you spring that tripwire and you have to make a mad dash for cover because you know that the beast is coming, or your best friend when you hear him go back into the walls, letting you know that it's safe to progress, at least for the time being. Much like the sound design, there's kind of a push-pull relationship with what I call the game's immersive elements. And when I say immersive elements, I really mean the various tools and how they play into the other systems. See, everything you do in this game is done in real time, meaning if you need to heal, reload, or save, the monster can get you at any time. Well, not in your safe room, especially if you lock the door. He can't get in. But all of these actions are intentionally slow to encourage you to use them at the best time possible. An ammo counter doesn't clutter the UI, instead you have to manually check the gun to see how many rounds you have in it. Additionally, the ammo needs to be reloaded one at a time with a button prompt for each bullet entering the cylinder. Henry even has different levels of injury he can sustain that is monitored by how much blood just covers his hand. Too much and a blood trail can form, leaving sense for the monster to track. Each time you venture out into the map, it's key to bring items you think you'll need for all different situations, while managing the game's limited but expandable inventory. It's equally important to know when the right time to use these items is. You're constantly second guessing yourself. Should I draw the creature out, shoot him in the head, and take advantage of his retreat to have a few minutes to do whatever I want? Well, I don't know, because I may need that bullet later. Do I burn the dead body covered in vicious rats that'll clear the way entirely, or do I just use a gas grenade for this specific encounter to get by him undetected? It's this concoction of on-the-fly thinking and strategic planning that makes the game so terrifying, working in its favor to make it one of the most effective horror games in a long time. With all of that said, nothing can ascend to perfection, leaving me with 3 negatives as well. These range in severity, but they're here nonetheless, and I should talk about them. The first one being the jarring loading times.
I hate this place.
Every time you enter a wing of the bunker, you're hit with this, or at least I was hit with this loading stutter, and it pulls you right out of the immersion. For a game with such a small map, I was honestly surprised to see any loading screens at all, because next-gen software has essentially made them obsolete, but they're here in full force. I'm no developer, but maybe these were done to help with the creature spawns, but I mean, not being able to go into different wings seamlessly hurt the immersion the game works so hard to build. Additionally, it can kind of throw you off your element, because you can make mistakes if you're actively evading the monster or even just running back to the safe room. These stutters did lead to the occasional death, which is frustrating because I got turned around, and because there's only one manual save for each time you venture out, you run the risk of dying and losing all of that progress. Dying due to something that was my fault, fine, but dying due to something that is outside the realm of my fault?
This needs to stop now.
The next one I feel like is very subjective, but it's an issue that I think I should mention. I've seen a lot of people online debate about this specific gameplay obstacle, and I'm of course talking about the rats. These present a fork in the road for the player that they have to deal with. There are numerous ways to go about this, but most directly cause sound that will bring out the stalker. I get an infestation of rats is plausible, and it's honestly very time period accurate, but they become so frequent in some zones that it removes the obstacle feeling and kind of becomes more of a nuisance. This isn't helped by the randomization of loot for each playthrough as well, so some players may not even find enough gas grenades to get by these areas efficiently. This is intended to work towards the tension I mentioned earlier, and the occasional block is fine. It's when they start becoming more frequent that it can start bogging down the experience. Having to think a way through a pile only to be met with another one in the next room is kind of discouraging, and sometimes it feels like it's just a cheap way of making the game longer. But also, if the game is going to present these hurdles and then give the player several options to dispatch them, the player shouldn't be punished for using some of them. Throwing a grenade causes sound, but it kills the rats, so you win some, you lose some. But then you find out that the grenade doesn't permanently kill the rats, more rats will take its place, meaning that it was all for nothing. You can rush through them, sure, but not without taking a bite or two, which will eventually lead to blood trailing. A certain section in this game, called the maintenance wing, is crawling with groupings of these oversized rodents, and some of them are so close together in cramped spaces that not all the rats will leave when using a gas grenade or even fire. Having to deal with them as an obstacle isn't bad, it's just the sheer quantity and important spaces that makes it way less engaging. I would have personally rathered some areas with shattered glass that would draw out the stalker instead of having to avoid rats, but that's just me. And last but not least, I have a problem with the game's ending. An otherwise well-paced game has an underwhelming final encounter, and this encounter to me throws everything that is good about the game out the window. The bunker is primarily built to give the player options, so it's really weird that the game just kind of takes away all of this freedom for its final encounter with the beast. There are technically 2 endings and 2 outcomes to this scenario, but they're relatively the same outside of one variable. A majority of the game has you battling darkness and attempting to evade the creature, only to have this last encounter take place in a well-lit area, and then it forces you to engage with it because it knows where you are all the time. you can't really actively evade it. Tonally, to me, it just felt completely off from the rest of the game, and I think it could have been handled better. I mean, I think even just having a final encounter in a dark space where you have to lead it into a trap would have been just better than what we got here. Aside from that odd transition in gameplay, I think the game's ending is suitably bleak, with Henry escaping the bunker, his personal hell. There's a moment of just pure relief when you finally see the blue sky, but it fades as quickly as it surfaces because you realize that Henry just kind of went from one hell to another. He finds himself back on the battlefield. But it works, and I think that sums up the game perfectly. Every time you achieve something in this game, you feel a sense of accomplishment and relief. But it's quickly undone when you realize you have to turn around and fade back into the darkness that's just teeming with danger. It's honestly a relentless experience, but it offers these quick moments to catch your breath. And as far as endings go, honestly, I love the bleakness of it. It's like a 10 out of 10 ending for me. So there you have it. Amnesia the Bunker is one of the better horror experiences to launch in the last several years. It draws inspiration from Alien Isolation with its persistently roaming threat. Though it doesn't quite reach those highs, it provides an accurate depiction of a time period that we seldom see in games with scares and horror that's done right. The three areas that stumbled to me are honestly just minor speed bumps in an otherwise well-crafted experience for horror fanatics. The areas where it excels, though, shows that Frictional Games still fully understands horror all these years later.
I'm so fucking scared right now!
I wouldn't be opposed to more games in this vein from them, or hell, even other developers in the future. Cat and mouse horror works incredibly well when it's done right, and this game is proof of that. So that's what I have to say about Amnesia the Bunker. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Did you play it? Maybe you don't like horror. Whatever your case and thoughts are, let me know in the comments below. Thank you all for watching and the support. You guys are awesome. I love you all, and you know the drill. Peace out.